He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow.
This ambition, like, wow, this person is amazing. Like, I would love to be even half of as amazing as this person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
What I really loved about this book was how he was able to just get through such difficult times with his mind. Like he was able to reframe things in an optimistic way, even though he was going through such a horrible experience. His outlook still managed to maintain somewhat positive throughout.
Seeing that people can go into, have everything taken away from you, but they're not really, because you still have that self or that something, do you know what I mean? So,
welcome to The Power of Pages, where we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition. And I go by Ty.
I'm Mr. Fly.
And this month we are reviewing Man's Search for Meaning. So first, Chris, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
The author, Viktor E. Frankl.
Yes, so Viktor E. Frankl, very short, he was a psychiatrist, a professional psychiatrist that was a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp. He was 37 when he was taken away.
Yeah.
And I think, as we'll get into, when he was a prisoner, he used his psychiatry as a way to kind of help his other prisoners, his fellow prisoners, and also kind of help himself. And then when he was released, he created a theory, or he had a theory maybe before he went in, but it was really quite interesting. Before
we started to read this book, had you heard of the author?
No, the reason I actually even found this book, because I did it until literally I started reading it, I didn't even know what it was about. I was watching a film, and then it makes sense now because the guy was in jail for something and he was on death row.
Okay.
And then he was like talking to another prisoner, and he said a quote from the book, and he was like, the book Man's Search for Meaning. And I was like, that's a sick quote. I don't remember what it was. I was hoping to find it in this book here, but I can't remember.
I think I found it, but we'll touch on it later, because if it's the same quote, I've heard that quote referenced, and someone mentioned that quote and mentioned Viktor E. Frankl before, but I'd never heard of him before. I never even paid attention at that moment in time. Just, it was kind of like a fleeting comment. And then reading the book, and then hearing his name, and then once I got to the quote, like it came back, it sparked in my mind, which we'll come on to later in the book. The title of the book has nothing, not nothing to do with the book, but it confuses what the book's about, in my opinion.
How do you mean?
Because I was like, when I saw the title, I was like, oh, Man's Search for Meaning, the meaning of life, like why are we here? Which it does touch on, but it's very much about, the Holocaust and his experience in the Holocaust and how he was able to create a more optimistic and positive mindset, and through such a difficult time, make light of the situation, if you like. So the title for me just threw me off, really, in terms of what the book was about, because the book's about the Holocaust.
I don't think it is, though. I don't think it's about the Holocaust specifically. I think it's more about how, because he even says this is an historical book.
It's about in my opinion, it's about his experience of the Holocaust. The first half anyway.
I don't know, I still don't think it's about that. I think it's more about his views on psychology and his views on life and optimism and actually the meaning of life. I think that's quite, because he talks about it, but he doesn't go into much detail. He just literally talks about his own experience. Do you know what I mean? Not about it in general. He doesn't, again, it's not a historical kind of book like that. So I think it's more about how he got through his experience. And also how he kind of, and even in that, because it was obviously, everyone knows about what the Holocaust then, and also he talks about things and how that kind of, he talks about things like love, friendship, camaraderie, teamwork, and then the meaning of life as well. So I think, like, for me, I don't actually think it was about that. I think it was more just about how he kind of found meaning to his life and what he got from it. So we'll get into it in a bit more.
I mean, that's a good point to it. We could ask the viewers, what do you think? If you've read the book, if you're going to read the book, let us know in the comments what you think this book is about. Because let's go straight on to some of his experiences. Because what I really loved about this book was how he was able to just get through such difficult times with his mind. Like he was able to reframe things in an optimistic way, even though he was going through such a horrible experience, his outlook still managed to maintain somewhat positive throughout. Yeah. And I think I drew comfort from that, you know, and also gratefulness because, you know, you can imagine, I mean, you know, he lined up, you know, you're told to go left or right. Left is you die, right is you survive. Yeah. And, you know, going through those situations, he was able to kind of joke about them or, you know, lightheartedly, but from his personal point of view. Like he even mentioned, like one of his friends or colleagues sneaked into his camp where he was, and he came to give them some advice, like all the other prisoners, and he said, yeah, don't be afraid, don't fear selection, but if you want to stay alive, there is only one way, look fit for work. And then I didn't actually write it down, but then he made a joke, the person made a joke to Victor E. Frankl, like, unless you're that guy, or something, I'm paraphrasing, but he made a joke to something like that, and he referenced that in the book, and he was kind of laughing about it, and it was just like, in these such difficult times, there's still like a bit of laughter and moments of joy.
But that's human nature. That's what I mean. So that's why I think it's more about those sort of moments, you know, because even he talks about like I think there was a moment he was talking about with one of the guards, and the guards have the power, you know, and then even though whether it was himself or one of his friends, kind of the guard said something and he maybe pronounced it wrong or said the word wrong, and then the prisoner was like corrected him, and that's, even though you're in the power, he's kind of been superior to him in that moment, so then he was kind of beating him out of anger because he's just embarrassed him, versus, do you see what I mean? So it's like, I think it's more about those sort of moments, do you see what I mean? So we're talking about like that teamwork, that camaraderie, like trying to help each other get through things.
Yeah. So about human psychology.
Human psychology, yeah. And then even like, just your perspective, I mean, he's very admirable. You know, it's like a lot of admiration, because to be, you know, we all, you know, I think I'm mentally strong, you know, and I know people that I think are mentally strong, and you think to yourself, in that situation, how strong would you be to not become apathetic and just become like a zombie, you know, to still keep, because again, I think he got a lot from helping people. Yeah. Or people got a lot from him helping them, but he also got a lot from it himself, because it gave him a purpose, it gave him the meaning, the search. So I guess in that moment he found, right, the meaning of his life is to help people, but it's not just for them, it's also for him, because it's giving him now a reason to stay alive, basically. Or whatnot. So yeah, okay. There was a point where, just to touch on that, where you mentioned like he wanted to help people, and he had an opportunity to escape. And he was working as a doctor, helping patients, but a friend found a potential way for them to escape. So they escaped, but there was something wrong with their uniform and documents, because they not only had to escape, but they then had to get the right documents and uniform so that, you know, they wouldn't be captured again. But there was something wrong with the documents that night, so they returned back. But when they returned back, his patients in the unit where he was looking after them could tell that he was trying to escape, and he denied it. He said, no, like whatever. But he then decided, actually, I'm not going to escape. You know, I don't want to leave these people. I don't want to let them down. And he says he decided not to escape. And when he was told his friend wasn't going to, he gained an inward peace that he had never experienced before. He gained peace from the fact that he actually wasn't going to escape, and that he was going to look after the patients there. And I think that also just goes to show the type of person he is. He's obviously quite caring and considerate, and he didn't want to leave behind anyone. And to go back to a word you said, is very, very admirable. Yeah, I think as well, there's a story, and he talks about, you might remember it, I'll try and find it, but he talks about like, not destiny, I think he calls it your fate, where he was trying to, I think, similar story, there was a bus, there was 2 buses, and was told this bus is going to be released or something like that, and then the people on that bus ended up going to a shooting range, basically, and then he decided not to, he was like, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, so he decided not to get on the bus, and obviously he survived. He didn't go on that bus, and he wouldn't have survived. And he just like, the story he told was, and if you remember it, just fill in the gaps, but there was a soldier or a farmer or something, and he was like, okay, we're going to death is coming here.
Yes.
So death's coming to see you here. Say we're in Labatt Grove, death's coming to see you in Labatt Grove. So the guy tries to run and say, I'm going to go to Shepherd's Bush. So then when death gets to Labatt Grove, they're like, the person you're looking for is not here. Say, "Oh, why is he here? I'm on my way to Shepherd's Bush anyway." So it was always going to happen. So he tried to run away from his fate.
Yeah.
Basically, I told the story really terrible, but you get that. I think you get the point of what I'm trying to make. But yeah, man, it's like stuff like you can't really. Sometimes you just got to you can't try and control everything. And even for me, I'm quite controlling with things. So it's like you have to kind of something that's going to happen, and you have to be at peace with that.
What will be, will be.
Yeah,
Reminds me of the story of the Chinese farmer from the book Think Like a Monk, which, is on our channel. Go back and watch that. But yeah, fate. And, the moments of luck that he experienced throughout, and he's lucky to be alive. So, yeah, what I did love about this book as well is so many moments of like quotes and phrases that just I felt was so powerful. And one of the ones that I wrote here was, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing. The last of human freedoms is to choose one attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So it's like, whatever it is you're going through, the thing that can't be taken from you is your attitude towards it. And it's just that he's going through such a horrible experience, but he's still able to take comfort in things like that and say, well, I can actually control my attitude in this. I might be hungry, I might have only had one meal today, I might be facing death, but actually I can still walk around with my chest high. And it was like, yeah, man, to be in just...
to get there, sorry to cut you off, but to get there in like extreme, because that's a very extreme scenario.
Yes.
And that's something that, again, a lot of people subscribe to that mentality, but you don't really know until you've kind of been tested.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So that's like, again, that's with the admiration is like, to get you're like at the bottom, you're the lowest of the low. People, you can't see, you're away from your family, you're in a terrible situation. People, are dying, you're malnourished.
Yeah.
All the rest of it, everything else that comes with it. You don't know if you're going to live to see the tomorrow, and to kind of be in a place where like you can still decide your attitude.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It kind of put a lot of things into perspective. But this book was quite sad reading this book, man.
It was.
Like I was like, if I'd known about it, I don't think I would have picked it. Honestly, yeah. So yeah, it was literally until I read the blurb, I was like, oh, okay, this is what this book's about. But it was, it's just like, it's again, kind of trying to relate it to like business or life and whatnot. It's like, it's quite what it relates to life. It is about life, but I think you see it's kind of like comeback stories. Obviously he was released and he kind of had his logotherapy, which I know we'll get into. That's like his theory regarding psychology. To even bounce back, because there's a lot of trauma attached to all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And then even like, again, just talking about things that are taken away. So even the hope, I think he said a lot of people died around Christmas, and then there was a guy that there was a rumor going around that they were going to be released on a particular date. So it gave people that purpose to people were kind of excited about that date. I think it was the 30th of November. I could be wrong, but and then when that date came and passed, I think one of the guys died because he just kind of didn't have anything to live for after that. So even getting to that point where you're kind of giving yourself that day in your mind, and then it comes and passes, and still being able to find another reason to kind of keep going or to stay optimistic, because that's what this book's about. I think it's about optimism. It's
optimism and keep going. And I think go on it, man's search for meaning, and he talks about how they search for meaning to stay alive or to keep fighting through these difficult times to stay alive, because he even talks about two of the people that he was with, they couldn't bear it anymore until they were reminded of their why. And for one of them, it was his son, who was in a foreign country. He was reminded of his son, like, stay alive for your son, like, keep fighting for your son. So he now had a reminder of his purpose and his why. And then for the other, it was his unfinished books as a scientist. He had written part books and he wanted to get that out to the world, and he was reminded of that. No, keep fighting, because, the world needs to see your books. And the quote that was referenced to me, that might be the same quote, it was, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And yeah, love, boy, let that sink in. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. If you have a purpose and you have a reason to keep going, a lot of people take comfort in their children, you know, that's what helps keep them going, or, you know, work, in his example, scientists, whatever it is. But if there's a reason, you can bear anything. I remember, it's funny, I remember my dad saying to me when I was younger, like, that he'd kill a lion for me. Like, I think I must have been somewhere, and I think I must have been scared or something, like maybe it was night or whatever, and he was trying to make me not scared. He said, what? You can't be scared around me. Like, I'll kill a lion for you. So it was like, you know, that was reassuring for me, but it was like, oh, his why was me. Well, it's probably still is me and my sister at the time, you know. So yeah, man, it's just
because again, he talks a lot about love, about like that's the most driving factor. So me, and again, it's that love, that thought of like, you know, there's something bigger there. I think as well in life, you need a bigger purpose than yourself. You know? And whether that is whatever that might be. Do you know what I mean? Is that your faith? Is that your family? Is that your friends? You know, you need something to kind of aspire to, because otherwise, then there's nothing. If you kind of feel like you've done it all. And that's why you set challenges for yourself and you set ambitions and passions change. Like we were talking a couple of days ago when we were out, it's like about what's your passion or stuff like that. It's like, I think you get to a point where you realise they change over time as you get older, because, you know, if you haven't got kids, at the moment your passion, you know, you start off, you might just be your immediate family, then you become yourself, you can become quite self-centred, then it becomes other people, then you have a family. So it's always constantly changing. So I mean, and again, like I said, we're in very comfortable situations. So that's what maybe I think this stuff is like, I mean, everyone goes through their own tests, so I don't want to undermine what people have been through, but I know the ranges of what people go through are literally so different. You know, you look around the world today. So it's like, to be in this kind of situation and still be able to have that optimism and still think about, because no one can ever argue with you if you just thought about yourself. You know, forget everyone here, it's just about me. I'm just trying to make sure I get through this. You know, if there's an opportunity to escape, I'm going to escape. I don't care about no one. I don't care about anyone else. So it's it's one of those things where if you have something bigger than you, it gives you a bigger purpose, a bigger why. I mean? To touch on that, it really did make me think, you know, have I experienced these challenges? Of course I've experienced challenges, but they're challenges to me. Of course you've experienced this challenge, but they're challenges to you. When we dive down, like, this is a life and death challenge, like this, his mindset was just so incredible. He estimated at one point that he had a 1 in 20 chance of survival, but said he was still not giving up hope. And another quote that he said was, "What you have experienced, no power on earth can take from you." And there was little moments like that. I'll probably touch on a few more, but it just, no one can take that from you. They can take your clothes, they can not feed you, whatever, but the things that you've experienced in life, no one can take that from you. And I love that, man. I love that. I think, did you take much from the stuff about logotherapy?
We can touch on it. I found it quite technical, quite scientific, if you like. But let's, I guess, put logotherapy in a definition for the viewers, because it's quite hard. Even he struggled to define it. I don't know if you wrote down a definition.
I just kind of tried to synthesize it down. Logotherapy focuses on the future, that is to say the meanings to be fulfilled by the patient in his future. So it's focused on what's ahead. Again, like, you know, so that's drawing off his experiences. So I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist, but that's just basically what
and it's kind of a term that he's created, his theory, which was quite interesting. But I wrote down here, man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in his life. And a poll in France found that 89% of people admitted that man needs something for the sake of which to live. And he also found that 61% said there was someone or something in their own lives whose sake they were even ready to die for. So 61% had such a big why that they would die for that why. And 89% said that they needed a why. They needed a reason to keep living. Which goes on to his point, what is the meaning of life? And I loved how he phrased this, because what he said was, what is the best chess move? It's like, well, it depends on the board. It depends on the situation. What is the meaning of life for you is different to me, for the viewers, etc. It really depends on the circumstances and situations. And I loved how he phrased that. But he said, finding the meaning of life, the essence of existence, the meaning of love, and the meaning of suffering.
I think it's like, you know, everyone has their own specific vocation or mission in life to carry out. You know, so you don't really, it's a question, it's like, what did he say? He said, what's your meaning, sort of thing. It's like he kind of flipped the question. So what's the meaning of life? But it's really, life is asking you, what's your meaning? So it's a deep book, man. It's very philosophical. And I think like everyone's answer is different. You know, even two people that are in more or less the same situation, their answers will be different. So but again, I think with books like this, with me, it makes you think, makes you reflect. And then, you know, which was quite interesting, where it spoke about like, it didn't phrase it this way, but the way I took it was like volunteering and stuff like that. Because it spoke about, you know, people that were unemployed, and then they got more from doing voluntary work than they would have if they were just not doing anything, receiving like benefits and stuff like that, which was quite interesting, like more internally, maybe not financially. So that financial drive was, you know, that drive just to be part of something gave them more than they would have got of. And I see that day to day. Like I see that in my walk of life now. It's quite interesting, like where we get a lot of people from the job centre that come and do courses, and they start off in like week one. They do like 6 to 8 week courses, like employability training, and they start off in week one, and it's all quite, you know, people don't know each other. They don't know each other. Then by the time they get to the end, they've really kind of formed like a connection. And then it's funny, the reason I'm bringing this up, because yesterday, some of the members of the group came back, and you could just tell they were so happy. It was like school. Honestly, the first day was like, because they know each other, but they don't. So they were together for maybe 6 weeks. Then they've come back for another course now, and you could just see the happy. Like, even I was like, because I don't really get involved in the courses, but I observe it and I know who they are and whatnot. So it was like, you know, after the school, it reminded me of the school holidays. You know, like, oh, what are you saying? Oh yeah, I've been on holiday. Oh yeah, this, that, and the third. I'm working here now. I'm doing this, and it's like, it's that where from doing a free course has now given them more than, you know, because I guess the course is optional. You know, so from doing that course, they've now created the teamwork, and like we said, going back into this sort of thing, like they've got a community within themselves. Like I said, this book, I think you could apply it to a lot of things, and there's a lot of examples you can kind of draw from that.
I mean, that's so lovely to hear. But the term he uses here is unemployment neurosis. And basically, he said, being jobless made some people feel useless and having a meaningless life. When he convinced these individuals to volunteer in youth organisations, adult education, or other meaningful voluntary roles, their depression dissipated, although their economic situation stayed the same. So their financial situation, their life didn't change, they just now volunteered, and now they became happier. And it said that a study found that 90% of alcoholics suffered from abysmal feelings of meaninglessness. So simply just because there isn't something for them to do. You know, okay, let me drink alcohol. But 90% of them suffered from not having a purpose, not having a why, which I found really interesting, man. This, like you said, this book is really, really quite deep, and it gives you the opportunity to reflect. And going back to how he was able to help other people reframe, because he touches on a story of a 30-year-old woman who tried to take her life. And she, after the death of her 11-year-old boy, so she tried to take her life after her son had passed, but she also had an older son who was paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And when she tried to take her own life, the older son saved her, or prevented her from doing it. And Victor asked another woman to look back on her life as if she was 80 and childless, but lots of financial success. And this woman said, great that she had financial success, but she had a fun life, but she sees it as a failure because that's not what she hoped for herself. So then he asked back the lady who tried to take her own life and said, you know, when you look at yourself at 80, what had you wished for? And she said, I wish to have children, and the wish was granted. One boy died, the other paralyzed. Though paralyzed, he is still my boy, and I have made a fuller life possible for him. Life was no failure. So by looking actually at the future and thinking, well, actually, I've been able to raise and support my son, even though I sadly lost a son. If I look back on my life from 80 years old and think, wow, actually, I was able to raise this son, she was able to take comfort from it. So viewing her life from the future allowed her to see that there was meaning in her life, despite all the suffering that she had. And his ability to articulate that in the book was heartwarming.
You reframed it. Did you find it like, not to go into like ratings and stuff like that, but how did you find the read?
Maybe we'll talk about it in the readability.
Yeah, I know, but in general, like, because the reason I'm asking, what I mean more so is like, it was quite hard to read, not because of the language, but the subject matter. So, like things like that, like that's quite an upsetting. Oh well, again, it's how because that's a choice that you wouldn't necessarily want to make, you know. Whether you want, you know, kids or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I think it was a hard read because of, you know, the sad stories that he mentions, but I actually took a lot of comfort from it because of how he was able to frame his mindset. So, like, it was just, I took comfort from the fact that he was able to make such optimism out of the negativity. So yeah, I found it sad, definitely sad at times, but also comforting at times because of the way he reframed things. There was even a story back when he was a prisoner, and he said, one day a foreman secretly gave him a piece of bread which was saved from his breakfast ration. So even the guards had, you know, somewhat of a ration diet. They obviously had more than the prisoners, but the guards saved bread for him, and he brought it to him. And he said, this brought tears to his eyes because of the human something, which that man also gave to him, and I can't even read my own notes, and the world, and looked at, I can't even read my notes, but it was the fact that
humanity.
It's humanity.
Because there's another part of that where the guy, I think some of the cooks will give them the bottom of the soup, where that's where all the peas or whatever is it. So, and again, that's the human nature, it's humanity. You know, being in that moment where that means so much because he's actually taking off his own plate to give to someone, literally taking his own food to give to someone else that he's actually that's in a worse situation to him. And that's a humanity, man. And I think it even like kind of links in with the whole stuff about being part of it. It's just about that connection. About even on the other side, which was quite interesting, where he spoke about where they saw other prisoners, but they were jealous of those prisoners because they weren't like prisoners. They weren't in concentration camps. They were like regular prisoners. So they had he goes, they had toothbrushes. They were able to get letters from their family, or they slept on a mattress. So even you've now got, from a human level, you've got prisoners here envious of other prisoners because of something like a toothbrush, or just being able to have mail, and they know that, even the psychological knowing, they know that the situation their family's in, so they know that their partner's still alive or whatnot. These people in here, they don't know whether their wives are alive or their kids are dead or all that kind of stuff. So And that's the kind of essence of it for me. It's like the human core, or I don't know, there's a word I can't find at the moment, but it kind of goes through, but it shows itself in a lot of different situations.
So he says here, another quote that I loved, there are only two races of men in this world, the race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. And it was like, you know, in that moment where he got the bread, he's like, you're still like, you could be a kind person. You're being forced to be a guard, or I don't know if they're being forced, but do you know what I mean? It's like, you're still showing some compassion.
Empathy.
In your eyes, you're doing your job. But actually you're able to do it with a bit of kindness. Even, it's quite hard.
It's hard, man. It's deep. It's deep. It's a deep book, man. I was speaking to a friend about this, and she wanted to start crying because she's read it.
Oh, okay.
And she was like, she didn't remember the book, and then because she's a mum, she's got 3 kids, and she was putting herself in his situation. She was like, she got kind of. It's a deep book, man. Like,
it's deep.
Like, So
that moment there, the bread, like that got me when I was reading it. I was like, rah, this, like. Wow, he gave him his bread and he's so happy about it, and it's like, it was quite emotional. It was quite emotional at times reading it.
It's deeper than rap.
It's deep. Were there any other key points that you took from it? There were a few for me. The chapter, the tragic case for optimism. Says human beings is not in pursuit of happiness, but rather in search of a reason to become happy. And that comes on to the, the unemployment neurosis that we just touched on. Were there any other things?
No, sorry, I thought you were going to go more. No, I mean, the key, we say key takeaway, or key...
Yeah, and in fact, this is what we haven't touched on. The power of the pages. What is the power of these pages?
Optimism. And human nature. Or optimism and humanity. So, because again, if you can be optimistic in the situation you're in, and even I know some people that have been in some really, and you look at, like it's the anniversary of Grenfell was a few weeks ago, and then obviously I know some people that in the community, everyone's been touched by that, but speaking to people that have been. That were in the fire, do you know what I mean? And there's a person in particular that I'm thinking of, and it's like, when I met this guy, and when he told me what he's been through, I'm not gonna tell this story, but the guy is the happiest guy. Like, he's not happy, he is. Do you see what I mean? But it's like, even think, when he taught, it's crazy. So basically that, like being able to, seeing that people can go into, have everything taken away from you, but then not really, because you still have that self or that something, do you know what I mean? So it's, optimism, I guess.
That's, and there's nothing but admiration for those. Yeah, man.
I don't think that word even does it justice, man. Like, I don't even have the word. It's just like, I feel like you're just here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's deep, man. It's so, and to know, it's kind of like seeing that humans have that in them, because this is an example of, okay, this gentleman wasn't in a concentration camp, but he was in the situation was dire. This, like, I don't have the words, but that hasn't defined you. And knowing that people can do that, it's kind of something to, like, makes you think, oh, I wonder if I could be, I wonder if I'm, it's ambition, like, wow, this person is amazing, like, I would love to be even half of as amazing as this person. Do you know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense. If that makes any sense.
No, it does, man. It does. Wow. And the power of the pages for me was, I mean, optimism, if we're putting it in a word, it is optimism. But I think for me, it's even to just look at any situation and just think, this ain't that bad. Or any situation that I go through, in comparison to this, it's like, well, actually, you can get through it. It's being able to reframe your thoughts. I mean, I already think I'm quite optimistic anyway, and I feel like I do quite a good job in reframing my own difficult times into positive times. But this took it to a whole nother level. This book, there was actually, even though there were sad moments in this book, I liked that he kind of made a little bit of laughter and jokes about the difficult situations that he was going through. And there was a bit that made me laugh, because he talked about, in the evening, they occasionally got together and did like cabaret, and, just for them to, I guess, have some fun or somewhat fun. And he talks about the Murderous Cappo. And the Murderous Cappo was one of the guards, and he was asked to recite one of his love poems. And Viktor Frankl said that while he was reciting his love poems, he had to bite his lips till they hurt in order to stop him from laughing, because the guy was reciting the poems. So he's like biting his lips just to like laugh, because it's so embarrassing. He's like biting his lips to like, I can't laugh because I'm gonna get, like I might die. Like so he said, and the fact that he bit his lips to stop laughing could have possibly like saved his life that day. And he said after he done the poem, like he gave him the round of applause, like profusely, like wow, like well done. And he said it was useful to be known as favourable to the capo. So like just things like that he had to do to stay alive, but he just made light of the joke, light of it in the book, and it made me laugh that he's like, I had to bite my lip, and so there were moments of laughter in the book, even though, like I said, it was quite sad. I don't know if there are moments that, if you remember that story in particular.
No, I do remember the bite of the lip part.
But
again, not to repeat myself, but it just shows that in any situation we're still humans, innit? And there's still banter, there's still fear, there's still all the emotions that we feel. You feel it in any situation, really. Do you see what I mean? Even like in a dire situation like that, there's still, they would have still been cracking jokes somehow. In some way, in some moments. Do you see what I mean? So it's not all. What was quite interesting to me was like relativity, where he said like a day felt like a week and a week felt like a day. So how time kind of went, so a day would seem really long, but then you kind of look back and like a week's passed and it's like stuff like that. So I mean, there was a lot. It's again, I think with the book, it's like the subject matters. You take what you can from it. You take what you can, but it's hard. It's quite. There's a lot in there, man. It's not just it's not light reading. For me anyway.
No, definitely. It definitely wasn't light reading. So I guess let's dive into a bit deeper on the difficulty rating or the readability. Because you picked this book, you go first. The difficulty rating.
For different reasons, I found it I'll give it a 3. Not necessarily, I mean, the top, but he simplified it quite well, actually. I kind of I understood what he was talking about. It wasn't too technical. There wasn't a lot of jargon, if any, in there. But just again, the subject matter was quite, was quite hard to read. So, and it was, even reading back through the notes, I was like, this is quite upsetting, man. Like, so I found it about a 3.
So when you say because of the topic,
because of the topic, because of the topic and because of the contents, not because of the writer's style. He writes in quite a relaxed style. He writes in quite informal. It's not a lot of stats, and it's easy to read in that sense. But just the contents itself and the subject matter and the thing we spoke about.
Difficult. Well, I gave this a 4.
Really?
I actually found it quite difficult to read, also because of the contents. But also, especially the second half, like the logotherapy, the psychiatry stuff, I found that quite a lot to process. There's a few terms he uses that can be a bit confusing, and actually, it's not that long of a book, but I felt like it took me quite long to read it for the size of the book. I did find it like a tough read. It's not a book that I would say to someone to read for their first book because
you might never want to read another.
Not only from the emotional point of view, but also it was a bit more difficult to read through it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Star rating, which we can dive in.
Yeah. Star rating, I'll give it a 4. Yeah, it's 4.
Let's elaborate. What did you like about it?
I liked where it took me, even though I didn't like where it took me.
Yeah.
So I mean, does that make sense? So there's that paradoxical, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I liked it. You know, it's a book that I definitely connected with. Again, it might have been that quote. I need to go back and watch that film again. I can't remember the quote. But yeah, and you know, it's a philosophical book. It's different. I liked it, man. I like because we could talk about this book for the whole day, and we wouldn't. It's even like you thought you got an opinion on what you think the book's about.
Yeah.
I've got an opinion on what I think the book's about. Someone else might have those. I mean, so it's something to debate and discuss, and then in there, you know, what is the meaning of life? You know, depending on who you're speaking to, some people will have a very cut and dry answer. Some people, it's something we can debate and discuss.
Yeah.
So that's what I liked about it. So yeah, a 4.
Yeah. Okay. I loved the conversation that we've had today about the book, talking about the points that you said, you know, the meaning of life, the optimism. For me, like I said, I found this book quite difficult to read, and definitely the second half I didn't necessarily enjoy. I found it quite confusing, and but what I did love about it were the quotes and the comfort that I took from it in certain points. But I think because I didn't necessarily love the read, I actually gave this a 2.5. I didn't love the read. I love the message of the book. Yeah. If I could give the message of the book a rating, I'd give that a 5. Okay. But the book itself I didn't love the read.
Would you recommend it to someone?
I'd recommend it to someone who, I would recommend it to the right person. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
The right person.
It's why when I say to someone who might be, you know, looking for a bit of meaning, looking for things to do, someone maybe a bit pessimistic, I would I'd recommend it. Yeah. So I would recommend it. Overall, I would recommend it.
I think this is our biggest, I would. It's our biggest disparity, I was going to say, for a long time.
For a while.
In ratings. But, would I recommend it? 100%. I would. I think to anyone, because I think that could change someone's perspective.
Yeah.
But I think any book that talks about human, atrocities or things like that is good. Anything that's happened in that sort of vein is gonna get someone's attention if they take the time to read it. You know, the issue is the person going to take the time to read it, because for me it wasn't that hard to get into. I actually liked when he was because when I thought, this is going to be a list of facts, on this date this happened and this date and da-da-da. But I liked, quite early, and even I read the foreword as well. And he was like, this is an historical journal. Yeah. And I was like, that made me, I like that because I thought, good, so, but I definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, okay.
I'd say with a trigger warning attached.
Read with caution.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that is Man's Search for Meaning. Well, next month's book, we have 0 Degrees of Empathy by Simon Baron Cohen, or the next book we're going to read. I wanted to learn a bit more about empathy. I picked this book. I'll explain that more in the next book review. But this goes out to say, this is the power of pages.
And we review books.
And if you found this video, if you've enjoyed this, watch this one here.